Dzień dobry Państwu, witamy niezwykle serdecznie. Witam dziennikarzy, operatorów i redaktorów na naszej konferencji, podczas której przedstawimy Państwu skonsolidowane wyniki finansowe za pierwsze półrocze i drugi kwartał 2019 roku. Reprezentujemy oczywiście Grupę LOTOS i witam bardzo serdecznie członków zarządu Grupy LOTOS, pana prezesa Mateusza Aleksandra Bonca, prezesa zarządu naszej grupy, wiceprezesa do spraw produkcji i handlu, pana prezesa Jarosława Pawula. Dzień dobry, panie prezesie. I bardzo serdecznie witam Wojciecha Zengtelera z Biura Relacji Inwestorskich, który oczywiście też jest do Państwa dyspozycji. Ja nazywam się Adam Kasprzyk, jestem dyrektorem komunikacji oczywiście w Grupie LOTOS. Drodzy Państwo, opowiemy, co
Today we are going to tell you what has been going on in recent 6 months, and I'm handing over to President Bonca. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. Even though the weather is so beautiful outside, you have decided to come and join us here at this conference. We have traditionally presented a conference presenting our financial results, including deeper dive into every segment. In the end, also a Q&A session is planned. We will be happy to answer all of your questions. First, let me sum up the situation in the first half 2019 and Q2. This is page 4 of the handout you've received. This was a good period for our group for 2 reasons. Because on the one hand, we were able to maintain stable level of our financial results, which is EBITDA LIFO, the very key indicator that we normally talk about. It was 1.4 million zlotys, which is billion zlotys, which is higher than last year, plus 4%, plus quarterly for Q2, it's 783 million, which is a small drop of 5%. In a moment, we are going to tell you more about the external situation that was changing. Also, there were some one-off events which impacted our operations, especially interruption of transmission using a pipeline that we are going to discuss later on. Now, the LOTOS Group and the annual shareholders meeting approved dividend for LOTOS Group, which amounted to 3 PLN per share, altogether 555 million PLN. This is a profit of about 4% looking at the current rate of our shares. What is greatest, however, is that our most important project, EFRA, has reached the ready for start-up status. This is a delayed coking unit that we are talking about. It is being commissioned these days. It will be tested in Q4. This unit will contribute to our results in Q4. We have also been able to utilize our capacities, even though we had an interruption at Adamowo point. So it turned out that Adamowo refinery, both in terms of trade and operations, is ready to take up market challenges and to leave them safe and sound. Now, a couple of comments to compare first half as compared to 17 and 18. You can see our results are stable. On the right-hand side, you can see refining and marketing crude oil throughput. It is quite high, which reflects how stable and efficient our refinery is. We had some renovations, some overhaul, and we now are able to improve our production as compared to 2018. Now, our debt, it is also getting improved. In our results, we take into consideration also some accounting effects related to the changing in accounting of leasing. And Q2 is closed with 0.8 gearing level, and half of it refers to the debt which is comparable to last year, which has to do with accounting changes. Also, Q2 shows very stable results both for production and extraction. In exploration, we see a steady drop, which, however, is related to natural depletion of deposits. And I'm sure that this is no secret to you. We will be talking about some new projects which are going to be launched until the end of the year to build up our production base in exploration. And now I would like to move on to discussing some figures referring to 2017 and 2018, looking at our strategy. When we published the strategy at the end of 2016, and then we divided it into two periods, the year 17-18 and then 19-22, and therefore I feel responsible to inform you now at this place how we've been executing this strategy, looking at some particular indices. The main thesis was to stabilize the situation and to develop in a secure way, and we have been able to do that. Following the 2 years since the beginning of this strategy, our cash flows, but also the debt reduction and main operating goals have been fulfilled, the ones that we assumed back then. We've also optimized a little bit our cost base, and at the same time, I told you that at many occasions, you know very well that both B8 and F4 projects faced certain challenges in the course of 2017 and 2018. Some part of our expenditure was reassigned to the upcoming periods. So now moving on to more measurable, I'd say, results. Both the operating ones and financial ones have been properly fulfilled. Even sometimes they are better than we planned. The number of gas stations is something we are working on still, but if you talk about refining or reserves exploration, here you can talk about the same level as in the assumptions or even better, and the same applies to financial results. Of course, they were under impact not only of our internal activities of LOTOS, but also some fundamental economic events. And publishing the strategy, we already had in mind certain effects that we could expect related, for example, to the changes in legislation. CAPEX was postponed, but also net debt was below a certain level, which used to be some challenge in the past. Now, as to the external environment, macroeconomic environment, right now you can have a look at the indicators for natural gas and crude oil. This is Brent. You can see here they are lower than expected, which of course influences the way in which we can generate economic profits in the segment of exploration. If you talk about product crack spreads, here we also face certain challenges both for gasoline and for diesel. And they are quite considerable. 10% in the case of diesel, which is the main product for us, and minus 36% in the case of gasoline. This has a direct impact on our economic results. At the same time, you can see that our financial results are safe. Now the dollar FX rate, dollar has been gaining strength, so the economy is still safe. We still see a safe growth of GDP in Poland, which is also confirmed by stable demand for our core products. Gasoline and other products, we can see that the consumption is very healthy in the market, which is a good thing, which we are very happy about. And finally, crude oil, natural gas, and product crack spreads. you can see them here over a longer period so that you can follow in which conditions we have been operating. The product crack spreads crisscrossed again, and you can see that also some changes when it comes to natural gas prices. Now, President Komuna is going to tell you more about his segments, and then we will sum up our financial results. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will be brief and tell you some basic facts about exploration segment. This is slide 15 in your handout. You can see here all of the facilities that that we use for exploration right now. First of all, in Poland, this is deposit B8 and B3. Also our key assets in Norway, Sleipner and Heimdal, as well as the one in Lithuania.
Lepszy pogląd na zmiany w segmencie poszukiwawczo wydobywczym co zobaczymy na kolejnym slajdzie. Jak już wcześniej prezes powiedział, tytułu naturalnego zczerpywania złóż produkcja zarówno w ujęciu kwartalnym, jak i półrocznym sukcesywnie spada na tych złożach, które produkują.
On those currently operated deposits.
Przekłada się na
This
właśnie ten
translates into
13%
this
spadek
13% drop
wyprodukowanego wolumenu.
in the produced volume.
Jeżeli chodzi o strukturę
If
wyprodukowanego
you think
wolumenu,
about the
tutaj nie ma
structure of the produced
dużych
volume
zmian.
of products, you can see no
Największą
changes
porcją
here. In fact, the largest part of it accounts for Norway and mainly natural gas. Second place is the exploration from Poland, and on the last place from Lithuania. If you please go to the next slide, now you can see here our resources, 2P reserves, and you can see some changes here as compared to the end of 2018. The reason being the already performed extraction exercises. So we haven't qualified any new discoveries or requalification of certain deposits. We showed you before the currently observable trend in terms of spreads as well as crude oil and natural gas, especially natural gas, and now it has very low prices. So if you combine it with also lower production, this translates and badly affects the results of this segment. These results are lower by 27% in terms of EBITDA as compared to Q2 2018. Now, if you could have a look at the results after the second quarter, half-year results, the difference is smaller, it's 13%. Still, those two factors are negative, both the reduction of exploration and low rates for crude oil and natural gas. Now let me move on to the next segment, which is refining and marketing.
The information here is better. If we talk about key products here, despite the worse situation in macroeconomic situation, in Q4 this year, we had problems with supplies by pipeline. The refinery didn't change its capacity and produced more than 2.5 million products in Q2. So this is the very similar result to Q2 of 2018. If you remember the data about the processing of crude oil, it was bigger. The difference here is caused by the fact that we imported more last year. So when we talk about execution, the refining margin it was higher last year than the previous year in the same period. It translates to maintaining very well operating results. I remember that refining margin and crack products in Q2 and in Q1 they were not so attractive as in the period of the previous year. The very high processing and the better structure of production, we had better results of diesel and decreased production of low margin products like heavy oil. It gave us opportunity to have stable results in the same period as the previous year. If you have a look at the first half of 2018, there is 14% of growth. It's also deducted of tax, so it's the clean EBITDA. It's very good to notice that there weren't any one-offs in this half year. The last slide relating to the production and marketing gives you a quarterly perspective of the margin. I want to inform you that we publish the margin on our website and you can always follow it. Here you can see that in Q2 2019 the results are quite low. It is caused by the product cracks on our key products, especially diesel. What is very important, it is caused by the low costs of natural gas. So the negative effect of the exploration segments translates to lower values. Here it gives us the low costs and increasing the result. So it all goes up. This is everything what is in terms of marketing. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Zentgeler. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have seen in the first slides, in the traditional summary of consolidated results, I will give you in more detail. Here we want to give you the information about some specific elements in an accounting sphere and not very business power can translate to it. The LIFO EBITDA is a bit lower year over year. I would like to mention two effects. First, the lower depreciation, and this is the natural effect of the lower exploration. So if we product less, the depreciation is lower. So this is, and the second thing is the effect of the president mentioned at the beginning. If we mention the IFRS 16, we describe some elements in different ways, so it gives another results of the clean EBITDA. And you can have the look on our business in reality. And the next perspective is the composition of the first half of 2019 versus 2018. If we have a look at these segments, you can see that the conditions, external conditions are worse, but good assets and good managing translates to steady results. Now we will go to some flows to the OPEX and CAPEX. We can see the drop of OPEX. I want to give you the explanation. This is the two factors. Firstly, this is the capital. The liabilities are more in Lotos Group. It means that we didn't use the factoring service this year. And secondly, we paid a bigger tax. This is the effect of two groups, Lotos Group and Lotos Norge. So it means that we pay the tax according to the prognosis. So you can see that the results are better, and it means that the taxes we paid in Poland and Norway weren't enough. So speaking simply, it means that we need to pay more to the declaration, to the year declaration. So it's translated into the cash flow. And the last slide, which is more about the debt and gearing ratio, you can see it on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side and in the middle, we are showing what are the elements which cause such a situation. On the left and the right column, you can see our net debt according to the leasing, which was out of the balance, and according to our new standard from 1st January 2019, it was noticed on the balance. This is everything what is about financial results. I would like to give the floor to Director Kasprzyk. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Anything else? Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? We are at your disposal. Gazeta Wyborcza, Mr. Kublik. Thank you. Gazeta Wyborcza, Andrzej Kublik. First, two questions. One about EFRA. How about it? Are there any tests here? How is it going? And when will the installation will be operating? And the second question, the Russian crisis. Have you already estimated the loss and additional expenditures which you bared in April in Adamowo? So I think that you increased the import. What is the impact of the situation? Have you already demanded anything from your Russian suppliers? Did you suspend any payments according to the bad quality of crude oil? And the third question, what are the measures will you take according to that crisis? Thank you very much. Thank you for that questions. I will answer it. In terms of EFRA, I can understand that the DCU is ready for startup on 26th of June, and I think it's very emotional. But many people work on that project. If we talk about this coking unit, there are some tests, some works on that which are carried out according to the program. There are no errors. Which will make us quit our declaration. We said that the results of EFRI will be given in Q4 this year. I think the works are very advanced already. There are some things to do more. We will keep informing you. If anything good happens there, we will inform you. I think that the very important thing there will be the press conference for achieving full capacity of that unit. In terms of polluted crude oil, we tried to inform you transparently by our press office on the current situation. Now, the crude oil which was delivered in national system, some of this crude oil is still there. PERN SA is preparing appropriate blends of clean crude supplied to Poland by Przyjaźń pipeline. And this crude oil with higher volume of chlorides. But in refinery in Gdańsk, the crude oil is cleaned. It's safe to process it there. But in fact, as you noticed, in the period when the deliveries were suspended, we needed to get the crude oil by sea. But according to our procedure, we had a commission for such a situation, and they are working on the additional costs of chloride crisis. As for now, we don't know everything about such a situation, because in the system there is still the crude oil accepted by PERN to the national system. So actually, the accountants is not finished. We can't tell you everything about all the demands, because everything is not calculated still. But we informed you that we will claim demands.
Now, in terms of operations regarding the future potential similar crisis occurring, well, as of today, we have come a long way since the crisis from 24th of April, then on 9th of June, and from 1st of July we have restored full capacity of our units. The national fuel market actually did not feel at all this crisis that we suffered from in terms of the supplies of oil through the pipeline to Poland. So, if you ask me, this demonstrates that the reserve and transmission system that
zgromadzonych zapasach obowiązkowych,
is composed of mandatory reserves, but also alternatives using the sea transports, proved to be efficient enough to cover the needs of 2 refineries in Poland and the total in Germany, to cover their needs from the sea supplies. However, this doesn't mean we are self-satisfied. This situation is not satisfactory yet. So following the finalization of the crisis-related activities, we are going to prepare a report. In the report, we are going to stipulate certain investment options aimed at making logistics even more flexible in terms of providing commodities to Lotos. Right now, we are still in the process. The process of this next stage, which is about processing the oil stored by PERN for Lotos. Following this period, we are going to draw some conclusions and we are going to execute proper improvements. Just one more question, if you allow me. GOST, first of all. What about GOST in your case, gentlemen? The change which has been performed in the Euro-Atlantic rules 10 until or did you mean from July? Because this translates into blending by PERN. If it's 6, then it will take a longer time, I guess. And the second point, you talked about these consequences for the future. I mean, it boils down to proper quality examinations. Do you examine these samples in a certified lab? I know that in the West, this is going to change very soon, and we are talking about the future. So, other words, if there will be any claims brought, then the company has to serve proper grounds for it, so that this will not be questioned by Russia. Therefore, we need to have this representative sample. We don't know, and we need to properly find such a sample. So in other words, are you going to apply to your Russian vendors to support your application for accrediting a lab in Poland so that they can run controls of oil samples?
Już odpowiadam.
Of course. You have rightly pointed out that this GOST standard has not changed. The maximum intake of chloride is 10 ppm still. Also, the frequency examinations has not changed yet. It seems more plausible that it's rather dependent on including daily examination of this intake. This 6 ppm rate does not refer to transmission to Europe, because it only regards the Euro-Asia contract, which is mainly about supplies to China. This is something we are not subject to. This is a bilateral issue between Russian and Chinese clients. In terms of quality assurance and certification and the lab which you mentioned, well, I must say that you are very well informed in the whole spectrum of issues that Polish clients faced when this problem occurred. What I can say right now is that Lotos was able to combat these issues, and in cooperation with our vendor, we have started controlling those referee samples. That's all I can say. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Andrzej Szyprowski. Przemysł Chemiczny Monthly. A question to you, gentlemen, whether you can see any in your economic results the effect of increased trade on gas stations on Sundays covered by the trade ban. There was a conference by Orlen, and they have increased their turnover rates due to the trade ban on Sundays. If you could please speak closer to the microphone. So now maybe we will be able to buy TV sets or shoes on gas stations, and I'm sure it also translates also into improved results for you. And also, I would like to ask you to invite us to this official opening. This is, after all, one of the largest units invested in recent years, and journalists went in April to this brownfield on which this facility in Police of propylene production will be constructed. And we were driven 500 kilometers only to see this brown field with nothing there yet. And in your case, we would really like to see personally your beautiful brand new facility. Let me only repeat the question. The journalist asked about our trade rates on non-commercial Sundays and how it contributes to our results. And also, I would like to comment on what you said recently. Yes, we are preparing a special press day on EFRA, so we are going to keep you in the loop, and we will invite you to a daily event where you will have the opportunity to see the facility yourselves. I think EFRA is a project that we could talk on and on about. Once they have been stabilized and commissioned, of course, we will organize such a meeting at that point. However, I'd like to refer to your first question, which is the non-commercial Sunday trade and whether it improved our better performance. I, of course, can't compare ourselves with the other competitor of ours, but in our apart from accounting effects, such as the changes in lease recognition, you can see the improvement performance of this segment. So indeed, our gas stations are becoming more and more profitable. We've been changing our product range. We've been complementing it, including some new products, not only first need products, but also additional ranges such as HoReCa, and also our gas stations are more and more friendly. One of the challenges that we are facing at LOTOS, actually we've been facing it for quite a long time, is about standardizing and increasing efficiency of our retail network. And we are on a good track to meet these goals. The number of gas stations is not going up and will not go up very dynamically because, after all, the market is quite saturated. However, what is changing is the structure of trade that is taking place on these gas stations. So probably we can also link it to some changes in the legislation, at least partly. You can feel invited always. You can come to our gas stations where we test our new restaurant solutions, but also some new offers which were not as refined or sophisticated as they should be in the past. Maciej Martewicz, Bloomberg News. My question regards Mr. Kabula's comment on the fact that you need to have full data on the oil before you can file claims for damages. Does that imply you're waiting until the system is cleaned before you apply for damages? That could take up to 6 months, according to Bern at least. And another
Prosiłbym o
question.
wytłumaczenie
If you could please
rachunkowe, może, bo
explain to
Państwo
me from an
mówiliście, że
accounting point
musicie
of
więcej płacić
view.
za ropę,
You said you need to pay more
jak ją
for
sprowadzacie z morza.
oil when it is supplied by the
ten efekt
sea.
widać w wynikach
So
tego
where
drugiego
does
kwartału?
it
W
show
którym
in the
miejscu to
results
jest
of
widoczne? No bo
Q2?
ta marża spadła,
After
owszem,
all,
ale
the
nie tak
margin
bardzo
did
może,
go
jakby się
down,
rynek
but
spodziewał.
not as much as the market could have expected
Gdzie to
it.
zostało może nadrobione? Pan już mówił o
So
tych cenach
did you
gazu.
compensate it in any way? You mentioned the natural gas prices, for
Mam
example.
jeszcze pytanie teraz
And
właśnie też o taką
yet
prośbę o
another question or a
wytłumaczenie.
request for clarification.
Rozumiem, że teraz już Państwo nie odbieracie
Right now,
dodatkowych
you don't
dostaw z morza, tylko wszystko już płynie
get additional supplies
rurociągami.
from
Czy
the
w tej
seas, but
umowie,
everything is
którą
transmitted by
zawarliście
pipelines.
między
Am I correct?
rafineriami,
The agreement
to
that you
wygląda
have
tak, że
between
wy bierzecie
refineries,
właśnie
according to the
proporcjonalnie do
agreement,
tego,
is it that you need to take off
tą ropę
proportionally
zanieczyszczoną do tego,
the
co
contaminated
wcześniej
oil,
przerabialiście, bo
proportionally
państwo
regarding
wcześniej
what you processed
sygnalizowaliście,
before,
że tak
because
naprawdę
you
w ogóle by najlepiej
informed
nie chcielibyście
in
tej
the past
ropy
that you actually would
oczyszczać,
rather
bo macie
quit
dostawy z morza.
cleaning this oil. After all, you have your sea
Bardzo
transports.
dziękuję za te pytania.
Thank you for these
Może
questions.
zacznę od końca,
Let me start
jeżeli
from
mogę.
the end, if you allow.
Przede wszystkim faktem jest, że
Well, first of all, it is
dostawy drogą
undeniable
są w
that
pełnej
oil
kontraktowej
transmitted by
ilości
pipelines
realizowane.
is being
To nie
taken off
znaczy,
in a full
że
contractual capacity.
rafineria Grupy LOTOS
However, it
zaopatruje
doesn't
się
mean
w
that the
pełni
refinery takes
ropą
off its
rurociągową,
oil
dlatego
only
że,
from the pipeline.
Wyraźnie istotny
A
składnik
clearly important
przerobu
part of
ropy
the
są
throughput
ropy
of our
alternatywne
crude
w stosunku
oil
do
comes from alternative
ropy
oils, not the Repco
Dodatkowo
oil. And
część,
additionally,
ropy Repco
part of the
dostarczanej
Repco
do
oil
rafinerii dostarczana
delivered
jest
to the
pomorską.
refinery comes to us by the sea.
Natomiast ta zakontraktowana
The
ilość
contracted
ropy,
volume
która
of
powinna drogą
oil
rurociągową
that
trafiać
should
na
be sent
rzecz
by
Grupy
the
LOTOS,
pipeline to
jest w tej
Lotos
chwili dostarczana.
is being
Teraz,
delivered. as we speak.
Odpowiadając na pytanie dotyczące tego,
And
w
now,
jaki sposób
referring to
kontrybuje
your
każdy
question on the
podmiot w
contribution
oczyszczaniu
of
tego systemu.
each party in the process of cleaning
Myśmy
the
nigdy
system.
nie deklarowali, że
In
nie
fact,
chcemy w
we
ogóle
never
przerabiać tej ropy.
declared that we
To
didn't want
bardzo
to
istotne.
process this
To,
oil.
że
That's quite important.
Dosyć długo trwało, zanim ropa
It took a long
zawierająca
time
podwyższoną
until
zawartość
this
organicznych do
oil
rafinerii
with
państwa
higher
trafiła.
intake
Wynikało
of
z
organic
innych przyczyn.
chloride came to
Przede
our
wszystkim
refinery is due to other
z
reasons.
tego,
First of
że
all, the reason
pozostałe
is
rafinerie,
that
które
the
normalnie
remaining
zaopatrywałyby się
refineries that
rurociągiem
normally would
Przyjaźń,
take off
w okresie
oil from the
kryzysowym,
Friendship pipeline in this
musiały
crisis
realizować
period
dostawy morskie,
had
co
to
powodowało, że
carry out
rurociąg
sea
pomorski,
transports. As a result, the Pomeranian
którym normalnie ropa naftowa
pipeline that is
trafia do
normally
rafinerii
used
Lotosu,
for the
pracował raczej
refinery
w
in
relacji
Lotos
z północy na południe.
worked more
Stąd
from
ta
the
ropa,
north
która
to
została
the
przyjęta
south.
na konto
So the
Grupy
oil
Lotos przez
taken
PERN
off
była
by PERN
przechowywana
on
w
behalf of
magazynach,
oil was
powiedzmy, w
stored
centralnej
in the
Polsce.
storage facilities
I
in
dopiero
central Poland.
pełne otwarcie
And
możliwości
only
przesyłowych
after
rurociągu
opening
Przyjaźń
full
1
transmission
lipca
capacities of Friendship Pipeline as
umożliwiło
of the 1st of
PERN-owi
July
takie
allowed
zaharmonizowanie
PERN
dostaw,
to
żeby
schedule
rozpocząć dostawy
deliveries in
ropy,
such a way that the
tej
supplies
uzdatnionej
of
już,
properly
rafinerii w Gdańsku.
prepared oil
I,
comes to
no
the
też
refinery in
odpowiadając
Gdańsk.
wprost na pytanie, każdy,
And a direct answer
odbiorca
to the other
dokładnie
question.
wie,
Every
ile ropy, w jakim
recipient
stężeniu,
knows how much
produktów
oil
organicznych
with
przyjął
what
w okresie,
concentration
kiedy,
of chloride were taken
między
off
innymi z
in
zanieczyszczeniem
the
ropy.
period when this
Tutaj nie
oil
ma,
was contaminated.
sporu co do tego,
There
kto
is
ile
no
powinien,
dispute here as to
tej
who
ropy
should what and how much
My
of the oil should be
faktycznie
processed. In
od
fact,
samego początku
right
deklarowaliśmy,
from
że
the
jesteśmy
beginning,
gotowi
we
przerabiać
declared we
ropę
were open to
o
process
zawartości chlorków
oil
organicznych
with
takiej,
higher
by
concentration
spełniała
of
wymagania
chlorides
normy
as
NOx.
long as
Tego
the
się
NOx
trzymamy od
standards
samego
are met.
początku,
This
kiedy,
has been
rozpoczęliśmy
our
dyskusję
position right from the
na temat
beginning
tego kryzysu
when the
ropowego.
discussions were started
Jeżeli
about the
chodzi o
so-called chloride
wyższe koszty,
crisis.
Nie, to
If
też
we
jest
talk
naturalne,
about
że
the higher
zakupy
prices,
ropy
higher costs,
dokonywane w formie spotowej, czyli
is the fact
ad
that
hoc,
when
muszą
we make
droższe
spot shopping,
niż, dostawy
it needs
w
to
ramach
be
kontraktów
more
terminowych.
expensive than the
Natomiast,
product
rachunek
commodities
finansowy,
bought in
tak dużej firmy jak
schedule.
Grupa LOTOS,
that remember that groups which have the production segment and marketing segment is complicated enough that the part of the costs were compensated by better results in other segments, in other fields. Therefore, we can't indicate one field where you can see the higher costs of commodities buying. Remember that the situation from the 24th of April doesn't mean that it was that there were more costs. And about the claims, in terms of the law and the contracts, we need to give proper stats. So we are not ready today to give the specific data and present them to the suppliers. When will you be ready?
Prawdopodobnie to będzie w momencie, kiedy
Probably
będziemy przynajmniej w stanie powiedzieć,
it will be
od PERN-u i od
in the time when we will get the information from PERN and other parties, how big will the cost be. In our report, in the communications, there is no figure about the additional costs of sea supplies. It's not a very significant value. It doesn't translate to our financial result. So that is why it's not indicated in the report. But we want to remember about another volumes which were bought with another prices, and here it will be given also with another prices. There are some effects in segments of marketing and also the segment of the cost cut. I'm sorry, the question is out of the mic. I would like to ask how much crude oil you have used from the reserves. We use our operating flexibility, and we rebuild the reserves during the period of the pipeline closure. Actually, the buying crude oil from the sea let us rebuild the reserves. The term of reserves are quite complicated. Some of it is also in the refinery, another place. I would like to know if you use these reserves, how much of it, like 200,000 or more, and will you use it in next months? We use the reserves which were allowed for us, and during the period when the pipeline is closed, we will use the reserves which are located in the refinery, in Naftoport, and other facilities owned by PERN. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Tomasz Folan, Rzeczpospolita. I would like to ask about the investments. You've mentioned that in last years you haven't achieved the targets which were planned. Firstly, how big are the capex volumes in this year? And I would like you to specify that in terms of EFRA and B8. So how much money was already spent and how much money will you spend in the future? And also you've mentioned that you haven't achieved the target in terms of the filling stations, which have been appreciated for 500, and I will start with filling stations. There are 495 stations for the end of 2018. We wanted to achieve 500, so it's actually 1% less. By 2022, we want to have 550 stations, so actually it's the organic steady growth. You can see that on the financial results in our marketing segments. In terms of capex, we have presented that this measure for first half of 2019 was $500 million, and it was slightly less than in 2018. And in last year we wanted to have capex between 1 and 1.5 billion. So actually, in terms of B8 portfolio and upstream portfolio, was not used efficiently in 100%. But we remember that the projects are finishing. EFRA project is almost finalizing. I'm talking also about the facility in Norway, which will be opened in Q4 2019. And the second project, which is very popular, which is known for people who are familiar to Lotos, in the next year it will be opened and it will produce around 500 million barrels of oil. We have seen that there is a natural drop of exploration that is due to less deposits, but we are still working in our portfolio, which let us rebuild the reserves. Aneta Action Pub. I would like to ask you about the merge. We have still time until December, but are there any works in your group on that matter? And can you confirm that the merge with Orlen is a good thing for Lotos? First part of the question, I would like to go back to this question. We are not the party in that operation. In Lotos Group, we are continuing the operating. We are competitive in the market, but there is a team in our group who is working on the appraisal, and it will be presented to PKN Orlen. So we are not stopping in our operating activity, but we also want to support the preparation to the transaction and to carry out the process. I think that's it. You know the deadlines, they are announced by PKN Orlen and European Commission. There is no more info which I can give you now. Is it an answer to your question? I can make my own thesis here. In some segments, in some parts of markets, I think that the financial results, but there are only a few thousands of people working here. I think that I can feel only the situation of the second part. The synergy means also the intellectual synergy. I think that Orlen intends to use our competence. In my opinion, personally, I think that this transaction will be good for all parties. Another question by Mr. Kublik. In the context what you've said, I think that 2 weeks ago, the European Commission announced 4 things which will quit the Orlen plans. I think I was wondering if 2 weeks ago you were happy about the situation or not. Previously, I thought that you were happy, but now I have doubts. I think that I don't know what you think makes us happy or not. I think that the taking over of one company means that there is only one object, one entity in the market. So actually the appraisal of Mr. Vestager means that your company will be ruined. I think that you are generalizing the fact. There are some projects which are wider than the operating of the companies, so taking that in mind, I can't say that we are not happy that in the Polish market will be another firms, another companies.
Let me use a different argument. Look at a different industry and a different state. Let's say Peugeot is taking over Renault. Then the comment would be, well, many people would shed many tears because consequences would be quite clear right from the outset, just like when Opel would be taken over by Peugeot. Well, sir, I did take part in some large-scale transactions like this, and I know that this is quite a more complex phenomenon than the one you presented. And this is unfortunately off the mic. I wanted to ask about the new platform that you purchased some weeks ago. It is supposed to be overhauled the crew is to be retrained,
Pan prezes Jarosław Kawula.
the oil rig.
Faktycznie
Indeed, we announced that Lotos Petro Baltic, belonging to our capital group, purchased a new tool, a new extraction tool, which is a jack-up type rig that is a raised rig purchased from Maersk Drilling company. And the basic aim of this purchase exercise is to carry out reconstruction works on the current deposits operated by Petro Baltic on the Baltic Sea. Right now, the said rig is to be repaired. It has to be adapted and adjusted to the requirements of the Polish law so that it can get a class approval certificate. We will properly train the personnel who is going to work on the rig. And first of all, it's going to work on the reconstruction, whereby reconstruction is a term used in the extraction industry. And what it means is that the existing drills that they have to be more open to more throughput, more passable. And this is the point of this rig. We have 3 such points at the Baltic Sea. Now, as to the future use of this rig, we are going to provide you with proper information. As of now, until we have achieved the operational readiness, some time will have to pass, and then it will reconstruct the drills on B3 deposit. There is one more question. Piotr Sępiński. My question regards the emission fees. I'll be direct. How does that translate into your results? I mean, from the very beginning, you said you would not move these raised costs onto your clients. So what costs are we talking about now? Ladies and gentlemen, we are a company operating on a competitive market. We are third largest retail and second largest wholesale operator in Poland. Following closely the price setter. So if you ask me whether in the financial results you can find one item where the number you said will be reflected, then my answer will be no, you can't. But indeed, the fuel fee is partly paid between the trade and the wholesale market. That's the only piece of information I can give you. Thank you very much. Any additional questions? None. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to talk to us now in a non-formal way. The members of the board will be here at your disposal. Have some tea, have some coffee, stay with us, and thank you very much for your attendance and for your question. I hope we've been able to answer all of them in a satisfactory manner. Once again, thank you.